आर अदर वेज ऑफ डूइंग इट जो कि हम आगे जाके बात करेंगे. अच्छा, दो चीजें और हैं. अगर मैं ये इन्वर्टेड कॉमास नहीं डालता तो क्या होगा? वंस अगेन आई एम वायलेटिंग. उसने मुझे कह दिया है hello is not declared in the scope. Did you mean ftelo? So this is not a helpful comment. So sometimes the comments are अच्छा, अगर मैं गलत यूज कर देता हूं, मैं सिंगल कोट्स यूज कर देता हूं, then again C++ is going to tell me the program finished and blah blah blah. This is not my expected behavior. It did something which it wasn't supposed to do. उसने उसको कन्वर्ट करने की कोशिश की, लेकिन मैं इसको स्क्रीन पे प्रिंट कराना चाह रहा हूं, तो मुझे exact curly braces both sides पे चाहिए होंगी, and it will treat whatever I put in here as a string and it's going to print that to the screen. अच्छा, I can concatenate multiple. Just one second, guys. 1 second. I can actually do multiple of these as well. Hello world. And then another one, let's say CS100. So all of this will now be print on the screen. So मैंने क्या किया है? I have actually concatenated this string and this string and this string and print all of them on there. The same way, I could actually put 3 statements for each of these as well. And C++ will treat them the exact same way. So I now have 3 statements: cout hello world, cout Fareed, cout CS100, and the same exact thing that happened here will be printed, because as far as the compiler is concerned, it's the exact same program. आपने एक ही लाइन में करना है कि आप हर चीज को अलग अलग cout कर दें, ये आप पे डिपेंड करता है. But you can see कि बाज़ चीजों पे it's particularly sort of bad, where it requires you to put in exactly what it wants you to do. ठीक? And in some, अच्छा, if I want to print each of them on a separate line, so the way to do this in C++ end line, this typically, this exactly, you actually telling it now this is the end of the line. So वो क्या करेगा? पहली लाइन में hello world print करेगा, दूसरी लाइन में Fareed और CS100 print करेगा, because when it prints this, and this is without any quotes, you're actually going to the next line. So पहली लाइन पे उसने hello world print किया, then उसने end line print किया, which is like to typewriter का नहीं होता था पुराने जमाने में, क्या चाहिए end of line and go to the next line. This is exactly the way this is. It's telling the program to go to the next line, and you can. This is, I'm just writing a comment for myself. Go to next line, and the output is exactly the same. As far as the C++ compiler is concerned, blank spaces don't matter, comments don't matter, and it's going to run the exact same thing. Now, questions, G. Where is IOStream? So IOStream is part of your compiler का infrastructure. So in this case, हम जिस प्लेटफॉर्म पे ये रन कर रहे हैं ना, उसने एक लाइब्रेरीज, जितनी लाइब्रेरीज हैं वो रखी हुई हैं, उसके अंदर IOStream भी है. तो when you install से, अगर आप Linux पे हैं या किसी और पे हैं, तो ये लाइब्रेरीज ऑलरेडी वहां बिल्ट इन होती हैं. So when I say include IOStream, वो IOStream को करेगा. एक क्वेश्चन ये हो सकता है कि वो सारी की सारी लाइब्रेरीज को इंक्लूड क्यों नहीं कर लेता? वो इतना बड़ा प्रोग्राम हो जाएगा कि आपको उसकी जरूरत नहीं है. सो आई एम जस्ट सेइंग कि एक लाइब्रेरी इंक्लूड करो, ये जो 2500 लाइब्रेरीज हैं इनको इंक्लूड ना करो, क्योंकि मैं वो इस्तेमाल नहीं कर रहा इस प्रोग्राम में. आई एम जस्ट गोइंग टू इंक्लूड दिस लाइब्रेरी, इंक्लूड दिस, print it onto the screen and ignore these other 2500 libraries which are part of most operating systems. Don't use them. अच्छा, वर्दा जो printf फंक्शन है ना, this is C++ से पहली वाली जो वर्जन थी वो C थी. C is very powerful. हम इस कोर्स में printf नहीं यूज करेंगे, हम cout से यूज करेंगे. ठीक है. You cannot have more than one int main in a code. We only will have one int main function. अगर हमने कोई और कोड लिखना होगा वो तो हम किसी और फंक्शन में लिखेंगे, उसका नाम मेन नहीं हो सकता. हर प्रोग्राम में सिर्फ एक int main होगी. So अगर मैं एक और int main बना देता हूं, the program again is going to throw a fit, because this is not, every program will just have, so every program will just have one int main, and the program will not, because वो ये कहेगा, जब वो लाइन नंबर 21 पे आएगा, वो कहेगा int main previously defined. वो कहेगा लाइन 8 पे आपने int main define कर लिया, आप दोबारा नहीं कर सकते. But do not put too much emphasis on these error messages. Sometimes these error messages are really ridiculous. So अभी तक तो helpful आ रहे हैं, लेकिन बहुत unexpected भी आएंगे, ठीक है? So this is int main सिर्फ एक ही होगा, दो नहीं हो सकते. The orange color always means the library is something green. असदुल्ला, आपका क्वेश्चन मुझे समझ नहीं आया. Can you ask your question?
ये सर मैंने पूछा था कि ऑरेंज कलर लाइब्रेरी के लिए यूज हो रहा है, ग्रीन कलर टेक्स्ट के लिए यूज हो रहा है, तो ये कलर्स यही रहते हैं सेम या डिफरेंट होते हैं, इसका क्या
अच्छा,
सीन है?
ये दिस इज वेयर द प्लेटफॉर्म इन विच यू आर प्रोग्रामिंग हेल्प्स. अगर आप लिनक्स पे लिख रहे हो तो एवरीथिंग इज वाइट, ठीक. लेकिन क्योंकि हम इंट्रोडक्टरी कोर्स हैं, इसलिए ये जो पर्टिकुलर ऑनलाइन कंपाइलर है, ये एक्चुअली कोड को ब्यूटिफाई करके दिखा रहा है. देयर इज एक्चुअली लिटरली अ बटन दैट सेज ब्यूटिफाई द कोड, राइट, और वो इसको ब्यूटिफाई कर रहा है. सो अदरवाइज ये होता नहीं है. दिस इज नॉट हाउ इट हैपेंस. As far as the compiler is concerned, they're all the same color. But this is just ये जो helpful environments होती हैं, IDEs कहलाती हैं, integrated development environments, they actually give you some of these tools because they're visually very helpful. But this is not part of the language specifications and they differ. हर platform की फर्क होगी, right? So जब
मतलब
आप
ये वेबसाइट की खासियत है सिर्फ, राइट? दैट्स व्हाट यू सेड। मतलब अभी कहना चाह रहे हैं सिर्फ इस वेबसाइट पे होगा ये?
या इस वेबसाइट पे, क्योंकि अगर आप रेपलिट पे जाएंगे, रेपलिट बाय द वे इज अनदर प्लेटफॉर्म जिस पे लोग कोड लिखते हैं, वहां कोई और कलर फॉर्मेटिंग होगी. सो आई कांट से कि सो अगर रेपलिट को देखें तो उसके ऊपर कुछ और होगी, अगर आप माइक्रोसॉफ्ट में लिख रहे होंगे उसमें कलर कन्वेंशन कोई और होगी. सो आई एम जस्ट समथिंग टू सॉर्ट ऑफ विजुअली टेल यू कि व्हाट मींस व्हाट. अच्छा, बाज चीजें जो है ना इसके अंदर कीवर्ड्स हैं. मसलन सी आउट इज अ कीवर्ड. सी आउट मींस समथिंग. आई कैन नॉट नेम अ वेरिएबल कॉल्ड सी आउट, लेकिन हम ये चीजें बाद में आएंगे. तो बहुत सारे ये जो कंपाइलर है वो क्या करते हैं कि जो जो कीवर्ड्स है ना, मसलन इंक्लूड is a keyword. This means that this means something specific to the language. I can't use it somewhere else. I cannot use these two variables somewhere else as well. So वो इसको कलर कर देता है कि इसको आप किसी और चीज के लिए इस्तेमाल ना करें, because the compiler takes this to mean something specific. ठीक है. अच्छा, can you explain line 13? Line 13 is essentially just saying print this is the end of line. So this essentially is just, think of this as the end of line character. ठीक है. कि when I say go to the next line, I say C out endl, तो वो अगली लाइन पे प्रिंट कर देता है जो भी उसने प्रिंट करना होता है. So for instance, if I did not have this, all of this would be printed on the same line. C out, hello world, hello world, Fareed और CS100 जो है, all three of them are actually printed on the same line. लेकिन if I want कि फरीद के बाद next line पे चला जाए, तो I'm going to say C out and L and एक L, and this is going to print hello world on one line, then go to the next line and print CS100. So essentially this is a way of getting to the next line. What's the purpose of lines 4? Acha, line 3 and 4 we फिलहाल are going to finesse. We are not going to talk about them any more than saying कि ये हर प्रोग्राम का हिस्सा है. Fasi, you can use VS Code, absolutely, but for those who don't want to use VS Code, this is much easier. You don't need to install anything on your computer. But VS Code, you're more than welcome. Gee, anyone who has their hand raised, please ask.
Sir, what is the best compiler that you suggest us to use?
They're all the same, depending on what you want to do. Lekin, I think end of the day, get comfortable with anyone. You will need to write working code in this class. You can do it here. Acha, whatever files that you create here, you can actually download them. You can create new files. All of this works here. So for the purpose of this course, this is good enough. Lekin otherwise, get comfortable with whatever, and you're essentially going to write code that's this part, right? The rest of ये compiler कौन सा है, platform कौन सा है, Windows पे हूँ कि Mac पे हूँ या किसी पे हूँ, ये part हर जगह same है. Whatever you're comfortable with, I'll be happy. But this is good enough for the course. So you can save the file, download it, and this is good enough for the class. जी, Daniel.
सर कोटेशन मार्क प्रिंट करना हो तो वो कैसे करेंगे?
अच्छा, कोटेशन मार्क प्रिंट करने के लिए ना you need to tell the computer कि ये जो चीज आ रही है ये, so you can actually escape them, so these are called escape characters. So अगर मैंने quotation mark print करना है ना, so I'm going to first put a backslash and whatever, so now it will tell the computer this is not a control character, this is not part of the previous thing, this is just printed as is. So backslash will actually print it as is. ये आगे जाके हम सारी चीजें करेंगे. So देखो पहली लाइन पे अगर मैं इसको इग्नोर करूं, then you will see it will actually print the quotation mark as is, and then Fareed and actually, so what this will do is it'll just print quotation mark by itself on one line, Fareed on the next line, and so quotation marks could be, so all such characters, if you want to escape them, sort of tell compiler to print them as is, you just use the backslash. ये आगे जाके हम करेंगे. We're kind of jumping the gun here, but we'll do this as we go forward. Okay, so hello world, this is the first program. See out. अच्छा हाँ, अगर मैं comma लिखता हूँ quotations में, तो comma will be treated as is. So comma will be printed as, and it will not treat that as a control character, and it will print a comma as is. So whatever is inside the quotation marks will be considered a string, will be printed as is onto the screen. So हमने ये कहा कि comments multi-line आ गए, हमने कहा कि हम header files add करते हैं जिसमें बाकी लोगों का कोड होता है. Every program has a main function. Every program, ये syntax for now हम given ले रहे हैं. Then every main function starts with a curly brace, ends with a curly brace. So this is the start of the main function, and inside the main function I can have cout statements. ये नेम सेट स्टैंडर्ड वाली बात अभी फिलहाल हम इग्नोर कर रहे हैं. हम ये कह रहे हैं कि whatever I'm going to put out after cout will be printed onto the screen, and this code is actually defined in this library iostream, and this will actually statements. See, the execution of a program is organized around statements in C++, and what that means is that there'll be a bunch of statements inside the main, every statement ending with a semicolon, and they will be executed one at a time till you get to the end of the program. And typically a good program should end with a return 0. And this is the first program that we have written in C++. It was a lot easier to do in Scratch, but at this point, return is a keyword, by the way. It just says that we are exiting successfully from a program, and then you have the corresponding right brace. जो मैंने brace ऊपर खोली थी वो नीचे बंद करनी जरूरी है, because the program actually matches the braces कि जितनी open है उतनी ही close होनी चाहिए, otherwise it knows that you have made a mistake. Then we said कि compiler जो है, जब मैं program का run का button press करूँगा, background में compiler will check your program against the grammatical rules of the C++ language, right? This is called the syntax, right? अब C++ is case sensitive. अगर मैं main की function को capital में लिख दूंगा, so while I know it's the same thing, C++ does not know it's the same thing. उसने कहा ये आपने क्या कर दिया? So C++ is case sensitive. Similarly, ये जो cout की function है, ये भी case sensitive है. हालांकि English में आपको शायद ये एक ही चीज लगे, लेकिन so this is case sensitive, and if you don't do this, semicolon after each statement, and sometimes you'll get helpful errors, sometimes you will not get helpful errors, and the errors is not something that you can sort of rely on. So abhi ek question पूछा गया था कि what's a good compiler? You actually find a compiler because some of these IDEs give very helpful error messages. So that's why I think कि वही सारा कोड आप यहाँ लिख सकते हैं, but maybe the error messages are not going to be as helpful in a sort of IDE like VS Code or whatever. Lekin it's actually, you can debug all of those things. I've learned essentially to program on Linux, which is like a blank black screen, and all of this is not going to change anything. अच्छा, एक चीज जिसकी मैंने बात नहीं की, मैंने endl की बात की. Another way of printing to the next line is \n. This is a special character. जब मैं \n कहता हूं, it means the same thing as cout and l. I'm telling the compiler, go to the next line. So what I'm essentially telling the compiler is what cout means कि screen पे print करो a bunch of white spaces, then this string, then a comma, a comma, a bunch of white spaces again, then this string, then this part essentially is telling the compiler go to the next line. It's the exact same syntax. So if I say \n is the exact same thing. All three of these strings will be now printed on a different line. So if I compile this, पहली line पे वो ये print करेगा, अगली line पे फिर ये print करेगा, अगली line पे CS100 print करेगा. This is just a way of formatting the screen. We don't need to write endl if we already wrote \n. If you want to write \n as text, you say \n. There are ways of doing this. I think this is how you can actually print \n. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, you can. So the way to escape this is you just write a \n. ये सारी चीजें आप आगे जाके सीख लेंगे. हर चीज print हो जाती है screen पे. लेकिन अगर आप खाली \n करते हैं तो you essentially just tell the compiler कि this is a control character. Lekin if you want to print the control character, you just put another \, and then you're telling the compiler कि अच्छा इसके बाद जो आएगा, don't treat it as a command, just print it as is, right? So there are ways to do it, but हम पता नहीं किधर भाग गए. I don't need to delete the endl. I could have, so if I want to add a blank line, so this is actually just going to skip the line. So what I'm saying is, print the first thing, print the second thing, then print a blank line, and then CS100, right? So this is exactly what this program. So what this line is saying is, this is the blank line, okay? And this is, it's going to essentially just, what happened here? Sorry, गलत वाले comments डाल दिए. This is the forward. Yeah, देखा ना, syntax, it's very particular about the syntax. So I did the wrong, so this is not a comment, and this is actually a comment, /. So थोड़ा सा मुश्किल है getting used to it, लेकिन as far as the course is concerned, I think we will pick this up. There'll be a very slow trajectory. ये \n और endl वाली चीजें आपको हर जगह नजर आएंगी. So for the sake of completeness, they are good. लेकिन as you write more programs, you will develop your own style. Masalan, I never use \n. I always use endl, right? Because it just makes more sense to me visually. And it's the same thing. When it gets compiled, the zeros and ones are going to be exactly the same. Because the compiler will realize कि अच्छा ये वही चीज कर रहा है. And that's the exact same thing. So मैं अपने आप को complicate नहीं करता. And you will actually, so \n was for next line, Isha. Like Mema is saying, but essentially you will develop a style and you will develop some habits, and that will be part of your it'll be your writing style. So you will develop a style. So don't overcomplicate things. I try not to overcomplicate things, and I think के code में आप बहुत ज़्यादा उस्तादी दिखा सकते हैं. All of this can actually be on one line of code, right? So I can write all of this in one line of code, लेकिन I will not. I will break it up. Because at the back end, when this goes to the compiler may exact same. So all of this is the exact same program. But when you're reading this, at the end, it probably is not going to make much sense to you. So I'm going to write it out in painful detail, simply because it helps me visualize the program better. And कोई ज़रूरत से ज़्यादा चीज़ें उस्तादियाँ दिखाने की बिल्कुल ज़रूरत नहीं है. At this stage, you will develop all of this when you go further. लेकिन for now, this is the exact same code, and this is a lot better laid out and a lot better sort of readable. So write readable code. No, it's not bad writing, Azhan. It's just that to me it's the same thing. Why would you? मुझे \n जो है ना, मुझे लगता है कि readability code की खराब होती है. Functionality बिल्कुल खराब नहीं होती, लेकिन readability code की खराब होती है. तो I typically have tons of comments. So if I were to write the program that we wrote for अभी जो हमने पीछे scratch में program लिख रहे थे, so when I start writing the program, this is what I do. get two inputs, get two random variables. So वो जो सूडो कोड की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ ना, वो मैं यूं लिखता हूँ. So फिर उसके बाद मैं कहूँगा get input from user. Then I will say check if it's correct. And this is how I would actually write all my programs. I'll actually put in these comments, and मैं तो actually इसको ज़्यादा beautify करता हूँ. I'll hopefully once sort of you go further, I have this standard habit that I do कि जब भी मैंने कोई प्रोग्राम लिखना होता है ना, मैं शुरू इस तरह करता हूँ कि मैं उसको हिस्सों में डिवाइड कर लेता हूँ, and those hissas I'm going to plug in now. So this is the code that I would. So I now know कि इधर इस हिस्से में the line between these two lines मैंने random variables लेने हैं, then मैंने input लेना है, then मैंने check करना है कि वो correct है कि नहीं. अगर वो correct है तो do something else, अगर वो incorrect है तो do something else. So I actually put tons of these comments in my code so that अगर मैं 1000 lines का program लिखा हुआ है तो मुझे exactly पता है कि ये block of code जो है what is it supposed to do. ठीक है, and this block of code I know exactly what it's supposed to do, and then I can simply focus on that part. And जो pseudo code है ना वो मैं यहाँ लिखता हूँ. But once again, that's my style. I'm not saying follow my style. I'm just saying कि you should write code that you should be able to understand later on, or you should be able to explain to someone later on. पर ये हम सारी चीजें करेंगे. अच्छा, when the होगा ये कि whenever the program you compile, you can actually put in multiple cout statements, and we've done a combination of all of them. Welcome to C++, I can write all of that in one line, or I can break them up into different lines using endels or \n, all of this. So this particular program, welcome \n to \n C++ \n, is essentially going to print this. It's going to print a welcome, it's going to print a to on a separate line, then it's going to print a blank line, and then it's going to say C++. We are doing the exact same thing using endels. ठीक? So once again, your style, लेकिन दो चार चीजें इस क्लास के अंदर. Every statement ends with a semicolon. Program needs to follow exact syntax, and if you don't follow the exact syntax, you're going to get errors. Some of those errors are useful, and some of those errors are not useful at all. So this is the exact same program जिसके अंदर हम ये कह रहे हैं welcome to CS100, right? So this is the exact same program, just a different way of saying this. Welcome to CS100, yeah, C++, yeah, whatever. But this is the same program written with \n. So \n and endels are new line characters. This allows you to print on multiple lines. ठीक है? Main program. So main जो हम yellow में कर रहे थे कि this is when you click the green flag, do this. उसका equivalent जो है is going to be the main program, whatever is inside those curly braces. Every C++ program has to have a main program. You can't have two mains. It's just going to be one. And essentially, the execution is start from the first line of main and go to the last line of main. Header files. हमने iostream की बात की. हमने ये कहा कि there is some code that is written by others. We want to use that in our program. Hundreds of thousands of millions of programmers have written code for C++. One such code allows you to print on the screen, and that code is part of the iostream library. So जब मैं include iostream कर रहा हूँ, I'm essentially telling the compiler, go look for the library called iostream. You know where it is. Add that, because that will allow you to understand कि cout का क्या मतलब है, और ये जो दो slashes हैं इनका क्या मतलब है. And this is how the compiler knows, oh, I have to print to the screen. So ये होगी header files, and then output statements. I can actually print a whole bunch of things. अच्छा, एक चीज मैंने बात नहीं की, वो भी कर लेते हैं. Actually, let's break for about 10 minutes. How about we've been talking for a while. Yeah, can we write something in the round brackets next to its main? अभी फिलहाल नहीं, लुकमान हम आगे जाके करेंगे, फिलहाल नहीं. But फिलहाल ignore करें. That will be a digression at this point. अच्छा, the other thing that you can see out is something which is interesting. So when I say I want to print 3 plus 4, right? So when I say 3 plus 4, what's going to get printed? It's actually going to print 3 plus 4. It's not going to evaluate them because मैं उसको कह रहा हूँ ये braces में है, in the sorry quotation marks में. So it's going to treat that as a screen as a string and print that on the screen. Like, what if I want the computer to compute 3 plus 4? So all I say is see out 3 plus 4, and now it's actually going to evaluate that. And I don't know why it has gone to sleep. And it's going to print that onto the screen. So now you see, I said see out 3 plus 4, and it actually printed 7 onto the screen. So if I want to say, so I want to be helpful, and I want to tell you that 3 plus 4 is equal to 7. Now it's going to say 3 plus 4 is equal to, and then it's going to compute that and say 7. So this is how couts work. कि जो उसको मैं 2 errors के बाद दूंगा, या वो उसको evaluate करेगा, या उसको वो string के तौर पे print करेगा screen के ऊपर. And this is the functionality. So the computer can do a bunch of very, very interesting stuff. Yes, please. I need to take a break as well. So I was wondering why no one said break. So let's take a break. Let's regroup at 3:30 at this point. 3:30 we'll meet again. I'm going to shut the mic off, and plus I'm going to turn the video off as well. But if you have any questions, I'll be here. Yeah, of course. Azhan, we're going to go over this painfully. Zone. We are going to go over this again. Take care. Bye.